What up, my fellow NBA lovers? This is your guy, Marcellus Ease. You know, in the next collective bargaining agreement between the players and owners, there's going to be a major clash that's going to happen, almost like that Avengers movie. This season alone, we've seen the players having to take most of the risk with their health. They're kind of having their lives being dictated to them off the court on who they could spend time with when it comes to their families and friends. And in this week alone, we're hearing how the players had a miscommunication as most of them thought All-Star weekend was not going to happen. But now, in order to fill the contract obligation that they have to one of their TV partners, they're going to have to participate and go to Atlanta. So the players right now are kind of feeling the pressure of just kind of the league being in that gray area of dictating their lives on and off the court and having to spend a lot of time away from their families. And keep in mind, a lot of these guys have young families. Now, Big Body Dre, aka Draymond Green, had went off on the media when it came to certain ways that things get reported. Now he's making a bid that stars should have the obligations to actually go against their contracts, just like their owners. But in a way, the Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin situation, it's kind of gray because when you look at this, Andre Drummond is getting told to sit while he's still getting paid. It's not like he's not getting paid anymore. And you guys are going to have to keep this in mind. There's nothing wrong with that because Andre Drummond is working for the Detroit Pistons. So his employer is giving him instructions and they're still paying him. So you guys check out this segment, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
James Harden asked for a trade and essentially dogged it. I don't think there was no surprise or there's no one's going to fight back that James was dogging it.
Now, if you guys read at the very bottom, it says, agree that there's a double standard between stars and teams in the NBA. Now, keep in mind, most players throughout the league are not stars. So is Draymond Green advocating for a small group of guys in the league to do whatever they want? That's the kind of gray area with this. But best believe a lot of this is just basically spill over from the league pushing the players to start the season early, get those Christmas games in, and now it's having the All-Star game. Now we see how Kyrie had a little pushback and kind of did a silent protest on his own. But best believe a lot of this is pushback.
Last days in Houston. But he was castrated for wanting to go to a different team, and everybody destroyed that man. And yet a team can come out and say, oh, we want to trade a guy, and then that guy is to go sit. And if he doesn't stay professional, then he's a cancer.
All right, there's a lot there. Shannon, how did you feel about his rant? Did you like it?
I love it. And Skip, he's absolutely.
And keep in mind, Draymond Green was not even asked any questions about what he was ranting about. He just went off on that rant. Once again, a lot of this is spillover from guys feeling like the league is putting their dollars over players' health and safety measures.
On. Because remember, he mentioned James Harden. Oh, and like I said, players are not allowed. You signed the contract, honor the contract. Skip, they
are honoring the contract, Shannon. They're still paying Andre Drummond. They're asking him to sit down, and they're still going to pay him. So they are honoring the contract. You see, all this kind of started when Anthony Davis created kind of like almost a domino effect because he was still under contract. And he just said he wanted to get traded. He no longer wanted to play for his team. See, unlike LeBron James signs 1-year deals and he maintains his flexibility in order to make demands. And also, when he left Cleveland for the first time, he was an unrestricted free agent. So he had every right to. So the players right now in the past couple of years have taken what LeBron James has done and took it to the next level because they're waiting 2, 3, sometimes 4 years ahead after signing a brand new contract saying that they don't want to play for their current teams. And best believe this is where owners, when they come back to negotiate the new deal with the players, this is where they're going to have a major clash.
told this man, Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, you're not playing until your agents and we figure out a situation. Really? Skip, if I'm not mistaken, they fined AD $100,000 for some requesting for warning out.
AD was under contract once again. Like I said, all this started when AD had requested to leave the Pelicans.
Even though he's behind the scenes, say, trying to handle this in a private manner, they say, no, a healthy scratch. So, James, so in other words, and this is what I've always had a problem with, teams can do whatever they want because the fans, for some reason, Skip, the billionaires have somehow done a great job of convincing the fans. If a player...
They're not convincing the fans of anything, Shannon. They're still honoring Andre Drummond's contract. Why is Blake Griffin so silent? Because he's getting paid not to play while they try to figure out what's the best positions for both parties.
Does something, the billionaire has been wronged by the millionaire player. It happens in every sport. In football, Skip, we see that all the time. A player, they're going to side strikes. The fans side with the players. And here's a situation. Teams put together teams all the time. You look at Danny Ainge really started the big three when he went out and got Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen and teamed up with Paul Pierce.
No, he didn't go out and get those guys. First of all, Kevin McHale was in charge of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know how the hell they let him get away with making that trade to send Garnett over there to Boston and then later leave that team in the same offseason and then end up getting a job in Boston. That trade is still really murky.
Everybody said Danny Ainge was genius. Boy, that was unbelievable what he did.
He wasn't genius. He was just well connected.
LeBron James is a free agent. Chris Bosh is a free agent. How dare they do that? They ruined the league. They ruined the league. Kevin Durant as a free agent. He goes join Steph and Clay. He ruined the league.
See, in those two circumstances, those guys were right. They were unrestricted free agents. See, in the past couple of years, we've seen guys like James Harden, Russell Westbrook, just any disgruntled stars that sign these new supermax contracts, just all of a sudden want to just jump ship. Those contracts are not designed to just trade guys. And this is where the owners are going to have a major problem, is that guys are signing 4 to 5 year deals and they want out after a year and a half. This is not how it works. And best believe the owners will probably end up trying to put some loopholes in the next collective bargaining agreement when it comes to supermax contracts. So if guys want out, there's probably going to be a kicker for guys to lose some money.
So players don't have the ability as a free agent to do what teams do all the time. They cut players, they trade players, but to tell a player, you cannot play, and the player is healthy. Because remember, the Adam Silver came out and said that healthy players, I'm expecting you to play. And if a healthy player doesn't play in a national televised game, they're going to find the team hundreds of thousands of dollars. Draymond is 1,000% correct, Skip. They got to do something about this because you can't say, if I want to move on, I want to play the younger guys. Okay, James Harden said, look, I don't believe I can win here. Skip, I didn't get upset at James wanting to move. I got upset with how he handled it. So he should have been allowed to sit, not cause a commotion until they find a trade partner. Don't force him to go out there and play. Don't label him and say all these other things. And fans, you need to understand. Give the player the same respect you give the team. When they want out, when the team want to move on with a player, they want to buy him out or they want to trade him, they got no problem sitting a healthy player. Let the players have that same kind of leeway.
So the players would then, Shannon, they would have to accept the fact that they're not going to get paid. If they want that same leeway, if they want to be the ones to make that decision, then that means those nice little checks that they're getting, they're not going to get. You could go ahead and sit, and while we're trying to trade you, we're not going to pay you. But if the team gives the player that option, they're actually honoring the contract because they're still paying the players.
Okay. On this one,
you already know. Skip ain't going to agree.
I'm not with you, and I'm not with Draymond. And yet, I want to be clear that I have always been very pro-player. I think all these players, they're so gifted, they should get every penny they can get. And many times...
As they should. They should get every penny they can get. But under this circumstance, the employer is still paying the player.
They do get well paid for what they do. And I'm not about shut up and dribble here. I'm just talking about the rules are the rules that you signed off on.
AKA the Players Union, they signed off on these rules. And best believe Draymond Green, he's not going to get any sympathy for the fans. I mean, multi-millionaires being asked to not do their jobs and still getting paid, and all of a sudden you want to draw sympathy. the average person and the average fan are not going to have any sympathy for any of this, because the average person not even making a quarter of their salary will never get that option of not showing up to work and getting paid.
You ceded some of this control to the owners through collective bargaining.
Yes.
So if you don't like it, fight it. Next time you get the chance, fight back. It's going to cost you some money to fight, as you well know. You're going to have to sit out, literally without getting paid.
Yeah.
Now, you see that right there? Sit out without getting paid. Best believe the owner's about to test the players. When that collective bargaining agreement comes back around, the owners definitely will end up testing these players out and see if they're going to walk out for a certain amount of time. Because remember, 2011, a lot of players quickly went overseas and was trying to get paid. A lot of these guys could not afford to sit out and not get paid. Only the superstars could, which makes up a small fraction of the league.
Because we're talking about right now an Andre Drummond in the report. They spoke right before tip-off, so I'm sure they were commiserating over this.
And Andre Drummond only spoke for the superstars in his comment. The average NBA player, which is majority of the league, cannot relate to what he's talking about, because the owners will never ever pay those guys just to sit.
That's fine, but I can't work up a lot of sympathy right now for Andre Drummond because he's in his 9th season in this league.
Right.
He's made so far, if you give him the rest of his contract this year, which is $28.8 million, okay? He will have made $136 million to play basketball. It's pretty good.
Yes.
It's not like I can work up a whole lot of sympathy for him.
Right.
Now, in reality, Andre Drummond probably made only about 40% of that. That's still a lot of money. Let's just say he made half of that. That's still a lot of money, and the average person is not going to work up a bunch of sympathy for a guy that's getting paid not to play.
And yet he's 0-8 in playoff games. Well, I think Cleveland's talking about, I could be wrong, but they might be trying to trade him to a contender so his life could get better. So
Why not play?
Huh?
Why not play him then?
Okay.
He's a basketball player.
Okay. They've moved on to Jared Allen, which I think Jared Allen is better than Andre Drummond.
Okay.
Okay. So they have moved on. So instead of.
And also, his contract is not up yet. They don't have to pay him the big bucks that they would have to pay Andre Drummond the following season. The real issue here is that guys like Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, they really have to watch out of getting pigeonholed to being one of these guys that get bought out and then they take a minimum salary to join a contending team, and then they never go back to getting paid a regular salary. They just become these guys that are journeymen that get paid minimum salaries. Because we have yet to see a player who used to make max dollars, who got bought out, all of a sudden go to a team and kind of gets paid somewhat close to what he got before. A lot of these guys get trapped into being these guys that's going to get minimum contracts.
Making him sit on the end of the bench in uniform, they're saying you don't need to dress because obviously they don't want to risk
Why
you
not
getting
play
hurt.
him in the basketball game? He's a basketball player. He plays basketball.
Okay, what if during warm-ups he turns an ankle and he's not tradable?
Well, what if James Harden was out there when he was
Okay,
making
but stay on Drummond. Stay on Drummond because James is a whole different situation.
100% agreed. James Harden's situation is completely different. Once again, Andre Drummond is told to sit, but at the end of the day, the team is still paying him. They gave him that option.
I look at it as like a player saying, the organization says, we want to move on. A player says, I want to move on. What's the difference?
For a brief period, they're saying, Andre.
The difference is the organization is paying you to do a job, and they have to give you the option of just you sitting, and they're going to pay you. But you can't give them the option. You got to become the employer, Shannon. Come on.
Just take the night off. You're okay. And it's pretty good because they're not cutting your pay. They're actually paying you $28 million to sit.
That man wants to play basketball.
Okay, but he's going to sooner than later.
No, I want to play right now.
Okay, but in the next few days, you want to play for a team that's not going to make the playoffs. You just want to go out and play.
He played for a lot of teams. Detroit did. There was a lot of years Detroit didn't make the playoffs, and he played. Okay,
so pretty soon he might be a net. He might be with the net. I don't know who he's going to be. And it'd be like, thank you, God. Look where I got. I got to KD and Kyrie and James.
But Skip, the problem.
Now, only thing with what Skip had said is that if that does happen to Andre Drummond, You guys best believe his career going forward throughout the league, as far as him getting paid, he might be that minimum paid journeyman. And that's kind of the trap that him and Blake Griffin don't want to fall into. Because we've seen that happen with DeMarcus Cousins, Josh Smith when he got bought out in Atlanta. We've seen that happen to quite a few guys, even Carmelo Anthony when he got bought out. They've become these journeymen that get paid minimum salaries. And that happens with all age ranges because Melo was a lot older. DeMarcus Cousins is a lot younger, even though he's injury prone. But look at Josh Smith. He was younger and he became this journeyman that joined different teams on minimum salaries. It seems like something goes on within the NBA front offices, the GMs. They tend to start viewing these guys as minimum paid guys. Once they accept that type of payment, they kind of get pigeonholed to be in that position for the rest of their careers.
The problem is now is that you're looking at it because you signed a contract, okay? The team signed the contract also.
Yep.
Andre Drummond is a basketball player. He didn't say, well, if things are not going well, I want to be able to sit and then move on. I don't know, and I could be wrong. I don't believe Andre Drummond went to the team and said, I want to get traded. This was their decision. Okay,
This is their decision.
They have a young...
But they were able to acquire a younger, better player than you, so I'm sorry.
A younger, better player that's cheaper. That's the main thing. That's a lot cheaper. Because Dan Gilbert is already paying a lot of money from that team. I believe he's still paying for those LeBron James years teams. I mean, he was paying a hefty price. So he's not trying to go over any type of cap space or just dip into that luxury tax for another year.
If you dressed last night, there's a chance you'd play 3 minutes. I don't know.
Skip, all I know is I saw the man against the Lakers have 25 and 20.
Okay.
The guys led the league in rebounding. You got to go back to Moses Malone, to somebody that averaged 15, 16 rebounds over 3 or 4.
He's a good rebounder. He's led this.
Yeah, he's a good rebounder. But at the end of the day, the league, the pace is a lot quicker, a lot more possessions. Guys are attempting way more shots. And guys are shooting three-pointers that are hitting off the rim a lot harder. And so guys are getting long rebounds. You even got point guards that don't even regularly rebound, average about 5 rebounds a game. So rebounding is kind of a bit overrated, especially the way Shannon's talking about it, because there's a lot more happening. Come on, Shannon.
League in rebounds 4 times. Last year, he had 18 and 15 on 2 different teams, Detroit and Cleveland, obviously.
So that's worth something, right?
Okay, no, I got it. But this isn't going to last the rest of the year. They're not saying you're in mothballs till next year. No, it's just a week or so or however long.
Why it got to be a week? Why can't he play basketball?
Okay,
he's a basketball player.
So for a team that's going nowhere?
Let me ask you a question.
Why would he want the wear and tear on his body?
So let me ask you a question.
After 9 years.
Any team that's not going anywhere, a player that wants to get out, he should just sit it down. We're not going anywhere anyway. James Harden should have just set it down because he says Houston doesn't have enough to win. Okay. So he should have just been able to sit it down, no questions asked.
Of course, James Harden could have sat it down. But when they say, hey, James Harden, we're not going to pay you, all of a sudden, James Harden going to be like, oh, this is not fair. That's the trade-off, Shannon. If the players want to choose not to play, they're not going to get paid. And once again, this only applies to the mega superstars because the average NBA player cannot relate to this because teams will never give those guys those type of options.
Okay, I can only comment from my perspective. I'm not going to use the word that Draymond used last night. That
bull jive.
No, what happened, what the media did.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to use that word. But let's just say I did not condemn James for finally saying, I just can't do this by myself. I did not condemn it.
No.
Of course, Skip trolling LeBron James. I could not do this by myself. But LeBron James was 100% correct. He was an unrestricted free agent. The decision is his, and it was only his to make. But since the Anthony Davis situation, once again, it's almost been like a domino effect of guys signing long-term deals and actually reneging on them after about 1 or 2 years. This is where the owners, when they come back to that collective bargaining agreement table, they're going to have a lot of pushback.
It was ugly. He got heavy and he was dogging it. Although, his dogging it, we both raved about the first night he played at Portland.
44-17.
Yeah, it was like, what?
Yeah.
But there are other nights when he wasn't trying.
He wouldn't
very
even
hard.
shoot the ball.
Okay.
And James Harden never met a shot, with the exception in Brooklyn now that he didn't
So
like.
clearly at Portland, was that the opening?
The opening,
I believe it was. I think he just wanted to say, hey, I can still do this. Now get me out of here.
Right.
I just want to show everybody I'm still good.
Right.
I might be a couple of pounds heavy, maybe 10 or 12 pounds, but I can still do this, right?
Yes.
And it went right to the wire, and he almost pulled it off by himself. Okay? So he got what he wanted. Did Anthony Davis not get what he wanted? I mean, these guys have contracts.
But what did the Pelicans do? They shut him down.
Okay, but how can you not? Because you have a contract.
Yes.
Do you honor your contract here at Fox? Yes, you do.
Yes.
I mean, listen, I got one. If you want out, you can't get out.
Right.
You can't.
But Skip,
you can go sit if you want to, but you can't go anywhere else.
No, but
Hey, Skip nailed it right in the head. You could go sit if you want to, AKA you can just up and quit. You're not going to get paid, but you can't go anywhere else because you're under contract.
my thing is that he has a contract and he wants to play, but because you want to move him, you says, no, don't play. But if I want to move on, I've got to play. How is that in the scheme of things? I get it.
Okay. Blake Griffin, Detroit. He wants out. He's asking for a trade, and they're saying, okay, we're going to shop you. We're going to find you a new home. We're going to try to make you happy and help us at the same time.
Right.
But we can't play you right now. Not that he was giving him a whole lot anyway, but we can't play you because we can't risk that you're going to get hurt, and then you can't be traded.
But here's the thing. You're going to have to buy him out. Nobody's going to trade.
Okay.
Blake Griffin is owed like $76 million because he has, 30-plus this year and 39 on the player option.
I know, but they'll try that, and then they'll try a buyout.
Yeah,
They'll
but I
try
want
to figure out
$97.
how to get him out.
I won't.
And that's where Blake Griffin is going to have to be very careful on that buyout. That number better be pretty high on that buyout because he's probably going to get pigeonholed for the rest of his career as being a journeyman that's going to take a minimum salary. Because for some reason, the guys in the front offices that offer these players these contracts, once they see a guy take a minimum payment, they kind of put him on that level subconsciously. Because I've yet to see a guy who used to be a high paid player get bought out, become a minimum paid player, and then eventually get back up to that salary again.
On the dollar.
Okay, well, they're going to try to work this out. I'm sure they'll do the best they can. And guess what? Blake Griffin will wind up on a better team than Detroit.
Yeah.
Want to bet?
Yeah.
So will it not help Blake late in his career?
But let me ask you a question, Skip. Do we believe that a championship is the missing piece on Blake Griffin's resume?
Yeah.
What does it change? Blake Griffin going to the Hall of Fame in pro basketball with a championship? No. Nobody, that's not on his, that's not the missing piece from Blake.
No,
Nobody's saying, man, if Blake won a championship, I would look at Blake Griffin totally different.
Well,
no,
I think
you're not.
You would some.
No.
Well,
no, he's not one of those guys. He's not one of those guys.
He's definitely not one of those guys. You can't dunk your way into a championship. But going back to the situation with Draymond, once again, this season, we're seeing little spurts here and there of just frustration that the players have with some of the direction that the league is going in as far as putting their health at risk, especially with this All-Star game happening. You can also add the season starting earlier than usual, and then they're dictating the players' lives off the court, how they spend time with their families or who they could spend time with. It's a very gray area. And I believe a lot of this, especially coming from Draymond, is frustrations that's spilling over. But we'll see how this plays out. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Peace.